Okay. How can a servlet communicate with another servlet? So, inter-servlet communication. Question is, how can one servlet communicate with another servlet? Assume it is a client. Request came. Request came to one servlet. Of course, via web server and servlet container. Assume this is servlet 1. Some portion of the request processing, servlet 1 has done that. But remaining portion sake, it should talk to servlet 2. It should talk to servlet 2. Servlet 2. Ultimately, servlet 2 will be sending the response to the client. Assume. So this is the request and this is the response. First servlet has received the client request. Some portion of the processing is completed. Remaining portion of the processing sake, it should talk to another servlet. Inter-servlet communication. How can a servlet communicate with another servlet? If it is a normal object, if it is a normal core Java, assume like class A, assume. It has one method called X. Class B, Y. Object of class A, object of class A wants to talk to object of class B. How it is possible? Very simple. X method belongs to class A, Y method belongs to class B. So B is equal to new B dot Y. That's it. Who is calling whom? X method is calling Y method. So one object talking to another object is nothing but a method of an object calling another method, a method of another object. This is called message passing. How one object can talk to another object using the concept called message passing. Making a method call is nothing but message passing. X is the calling method, Y is the called method. So who is talking to whom? X is talking to Y. No, no, no. X belongs to object of class A. Y belongs to object of class B. When X is making a method call, Y call, you know which object is talking to which object? Instance of class A talking to instance of class B. So this is nothing but inter-object communication through message passing. But if it is a servlet, if it is servlet 1, it is servlet 2. How can one servlet talk to another servlet? Normal object communication through message passing, because one object can get the reference of another object. Using that reference, method call can be made on the second object. But servlet 1 cannot have the reference of servlet 2. No reference. Who will maintain the reference of a servlet? Only container. That is why normal inter-object communication, like a servlet cannot communicate with another servlet. Okay, that's what we have to understand. By using request dispatching, using the concept called request dispatching, a servlet can talk to another servlet. Not only that, a servlet can talk to a JSP also. Okay. So by using which concept, one servlet can talk to another servlet? By using request dispatching. Very good. Request dispatching is implemented as follows. Step 1, creating request dispatcher object. Okay. Whenever one servlet wants to talk to another servlet, using which mechanism it is implemented? By using request dispatching. How to implement request dispatching? There are two steps, please. One step is create the request dispatcher object. Request dispatcher is equal to request dot get request dispatcher. Get request dispatcher. A public URL name of the other server. Step 2, call forward or include method on the request dispatcher object. For example, request dispatcher dot forward request comma response. That's it. But a bit of I can give example, but the problem is once upon a time when servlet was a very top priority technology, we were giving two examples. Forward one example, include one example. Now we cannot even have a single example also. Only concept I am saying, that's all. Okay, no possibility, please. That's all. So observe, this is class my servlet 1 extends generic servlet. Assume there is another one, my servlet 2 extends generic servlet. There are two servlets, please. My servlet 1, my servlet 2. Now, here there is one service method, servlet request, servlet response. Yeah. Now, first servlet wants to talk to second servlet. How? How to talk? Service method. Servlet 1 cannot call the service method of servlet 2 directly, na? Because container only can call the service method. So this is what we have to understand. Within the service method of servlet 1, somehow call the service method of servlet 2. Not possible directly to call. How it is done? Request dispatcher RD is equal to request dot get request dispatcher RD dot forward request comma response. Finished. First of all, servlet container called the service method. Line number 5. Request dispatcher object created. Line number 6. Service method is calling forward method by supplying request and response as arguments. Not servlet 1's service method is calling servlet 2 service method directly. Once sixth line is executed, internally servlet container calls the service method of the second servlet. That's all. So this is inter servlet communication. Who is talking to whom? First servlet talking to second servlet. What is this /2? You should have some common sense also. Already two examples we have done. Web app by web app. Okay. First servlet registered. Okay, servlet registration. And servlet hyphen name. Servlet hyphen class. Observe. So one servlet is registered. Another servlet also should be registered. I told there are two servlets. No? Assume I am saying registration name ONE1. Servlet name my servlet 1. Second servlet also registered 2. My servlet. Observe carefully. In the example, totally how many servlets are there? Two servlets are there. My servlet 1, my servlet 2. Both of them registered. But every servlet also will have a public URL number. Yes. Now, servlet mapping. Okay, servlet mapping, servlet mapping. If your application has multiple servlets, every time you have to register. How many servlets are there? Every servlet should be registered. Okay, and this also. Every servlet should have a unique public URL name. URL pattern. Slash. For example, I say hi. Here I say hello. Now tell me, totally how many servlets are there in the web application? Two servlets. What are the three names of the first servlet? Registration name ONE1. Class name my servlet 1. Public URL name /hi. Now the question is, what are the three names of the second servlet? 2 is the registration name. My servlet 2 is the class name. /hello is the public URL name. Now tell me, who wants to talk to whom? First servlet wants to talk to second servlet. Here, it has to say hello. Finished. So, who is talking to whom in line number 6? My servlet 1 talking to my servlet 2. Inter-servlet communication. Using which concept? Request dispatching. How to implement request dispatching? It's a two-step process. Step 1, create the request dispatcher object. How to create a request dispatcher object? By calling get request dispatcher method, by calling get request dispatcher method on the request object, request dispatcher object is created. What argument you supply to get request dispatcher method? Public URL name of the servlet. So my servlet 1 wants to talk to which servlet? That servlet's public URL name it has to be given slash hello. Finished. After that, service method is calling forward method on the request dispatcher. So internally, from third line, control will go to 12 line. Here only one point you have to remember. If it is normal core Java, because the reference of another object you can hold, using the reference directly its method can be called. But servlet's reference, our one servlet cannot maintain the reference of another servlet. Na? That is why direct reference not there. Indirectly using request dispatcher, such calling is given. That is the facility. Okay. Okay, fine. Uh, it will be more interesting if I take the example, but it's waste of time. Okay, fine. So with this, what is over? Inter-servlet communication happened. Okay. And orally only I will tell you. Forward include, I told na. RD dot forward. Tell me what will happen if RD dot forward? Control will go from servlet 1 to servlet 2. Control will go from servlet 1 to servlet 2. But control will not come back. Forward mechanism means control goes to second servlet. Who is responsible to give the output to the client? Second fellow. Forward mechanism means response building is a second servlet's responsibility. If it is include mechanism, if it is include, control will go from S1 to S2. Remaining portion of the processing will happen, but automatically control comes to S1. But who is responsible to give the output to the client? S1 only responsible. So caller is responsible to give the output if it is include mechanism. If it is a forward mechanism, called fellow is responsible to build the response to the client. Okay, so that is the story, please. Okay. So this is the point of inter-servlet communication using request dispatch. Yes, please. No. In case of forward mechanism of request dispatching, the second servlet is responsible to build the response for the client. In case of include mechanism of request dispatching, okay, the first servlet is responsible to build the response for the client. That's all, please. This is the concept of inter-servlet communication. Very. What are the frequently used HTTP methods? Get and post. So, what are the HTTP methods? So many other things will be there. In high-end classes, you will be learning. But there are two famous HTTP methods. One is called get, another is called post. What this get and post? Let me explain. This is browser. This is browser. This is web server. What is the what is the protocol? Browser and web server communicate each other using which protocol? HTTP. HTTP. Browser, one way of browser begging the web server is get style. Get way of begging. Another way of begging is post. So in two ways, browser can beg the web server. Begging styles. One style is get style. Another style is post style. So what are the different ways of browser requesting the web server? One style of begging is get style, another style is post style. So these are called HTTP request methods. Method means the way, not Java method, please. It is not at all servlet concept. It is purely HTTP concept. Purely hypertext transfer protocol concept. Okay. Put, delete, some other things also there. In high-end classes, very elaborately you will be learning. At advanced Java time, we learn browser can beg the web server in two ways. One way of begging is get way. Another way of begging is post way. So these are known as get style of requesting and post style of request. Finished. Okay, very good. What is the life cycle of HTTP servlet? We did two examples. Every time we were inheriting from generic servlet. In real time, never ever a servlet inherits from generic servlet. Always a user-defined servlet inherits from HTTP servlet. Okay, so in real time Java web applications, a servlet never inherits generic servlet. It inherits Java X dot servlet dot HTTP dot HTTP servlet. So always our own servlet, okay, always inherits from HTTP servlet. For example, public class my servlet extends HTTP servlet. Public void init. Resource allocation if need. Resources deallocation. Resources allocation, resources deallocation. Already mentioned, but public void do get HTTP servlet request, comma, HTTP servlet response. Do get or do post. So please remember, we never ever write service method in a real-time servlet. We never ever write service method in a real-time servlet. So which is the servicing method in a real servlet? Either do get or do post. We never write service. But who calls do get or do post? Who calls do get or do post? So please remember, note, if if client, if the client makes a request to the web server using get method, using HTTP get method, comma, do get method of the servlet is called. If the request is of post type, do post method is called. So please remember, always we write either do get method or do post method. Okay, we never write service method. Okay. So now tell me, when is do get method called? When is do post method called? If the client request is get type of request, do get is called. If the incoming request is post type of request, do post method is called. Okay. So please try to understand. Is do get or do post method life cycle method? No, no. Only service method is the life cycle method. Look at this. Explain about the life cycle of my servlet now. Explain about the life cycle of my servlet now. First, instantiation phase. After that, container calling the init method. That is called initialization phase. After initialization phase, next which phase? Servicing phase only. Servlet container cannot call do get method or do post method. It cannot call do get method or it cannot call do post method. It can call only service method. Where is the service method in this my servlet? It is there because HTTP servlet extends generic servlet. In HTTP servlet, service method is implemented. So in that service method, code is written to find out if incoming request is get, do get method is called. If incoming request is post request, do post method is called. So tell me, what is the life cycle of HTTP servlet? Same old story. But which is the servicing method? Either do get or do post is the servicing method of the servlet. Okay, that is the point. So now onwards, tell me, how do you write any servlet? How do you write any servlet? Extends HTTP servlet. You never write init method and destroy method generally. You write which method? Either do get or do post. Okay, fine. Do get or do post. Act as the servicing method. Okay. So for lifetime, forget about the service method. Does the servlet container call do get or do post? No, no. Servlet container calls service method only. From within the service method, based on the HTTP request method, do get or do post is called. That's it. So now onwards, in the interview, anybody asks you client request handling code in a real servlet, where do you write? Answer should be, okay, either in the do get method or in the do post method. Then in which situation you write do get, when do you write to do post? That should be the next question. When do you write do get? When do you write do post? I already told you. HTTP request method will decide. Incoming request is get type, then do get. Incoming request is post type, it is do post. Okay, fine. When is get request used? Yeah. When the web form is submitted, if DML operation is performed in the backend, request type is post only. So what is the meaning of this? From browser, request will go to web server either in getway or postway. Request goes from browser to server. As a result of this request, one record is inserted, assume. One record is inserted. Or one record is updated. Or one record is deleted. So in such case, post only used. It is the rule in HTTP, please. So whenever the form is submitted in the backend, either record insertion, deletion, or updation is happening, always request is post type. When the web form is submitted, if DRL operation is performed, DRL operation means data retrieval is performed. In the backend, request type is get only. So from the server, from the web server to the DBMS, select statement is getting submitted, then request type is get. Insertion, updation, deletion happening, then the request type will be post. So now the questions should come like. So you are writing your own servlet. Which is the service method of a servlet? Do get or do post. Do get or do post, that's all. But in which situation you go for do get? In which situation you go for do post? Okay. So from the front end, if the request is coming to the back end, as a result of that request, if a record is inserted into the database table, a record is updated or a record is deleted. It means if DML operations are getting performed, definitely request type is post only. Only retrieval is happening, but no insertion, deletion, and updation there. Then you know which is used? Get only. So get for getting the data from the database, but not modifying anything in the database. Okay. Okay. No. In the web form, if any, in the web form, if any sensitive information is getting passed, for example, username and password, for security reasons, post method only. Post. So this is very important discussion, please observe. User registration, login. Okay, login. Account closing. Funds transfer. These are the 4 use cases. In these 4 examples, request type is get or post. User registration means storing into the database. Then request type should be post. Account closing. When the form is submitted, account closing, record is deleted in the database. Therefore, request type should be post only. Funds transfer use case. In this use case also, once the form is submitted in the database, modification will happen. So therefore, never go for get, it should be post. So Registration means record insertion. Account closing means record deletion. Funds transfer means account updation. Insertion, deletion, and updation are there. Always request type should be post only, should not be get. That's what I'm trying to say. Login, login. When you enter your username and password, no database is modified. No insertion, no deletion, no updation. But still, request type should not be get. Login form when you are designing, request type should not be get. Ah, no, sir, login means only verification, reading the data only. I will not modify the data. Then why it should be get? Why should it be post only? Question. No. Secured information when it is traveling. Okay. So even though read operation is performed on the database, okay, request type will be get request only. So request type will be get request only. So we'll see 2, 3 examples in the coming sessions. Then you automatically realize when to go for get, when to go for post. But whatever I am explaining, for your some idea sake, I am explaining. But total idea you will get once we do the examples. I hope you understand. So in all these four use cases, request type will be what? Get or post. User registration means post. Login, post. Account closing, post. Funds transfer, post. Okay. Balance inquiry, get. Viewing the online result, get request only. I hope you understood. Yeah. So as of today, I stop here and yeah. So tomorrow we'll see a real database, real life example. Then you will understand get post story. With this, I stop teaching. Now doubt section, please. You can ask the doubts. Yes, please. No questions. No questions. Nobody's asking. So I am signing off.